Welcome to the 4th Annual Partnership for Safe Medicines Interchange. To be quite honest, I'm a little thrown by the fact that it's been 4 years of this. When we started this and it was just a small idea at the press club, we were all jammed into a very tiny room and nobody expected it would continue to grow each year. So we're very excited. We're very excited everyone could join us today. I am Scott LaGanga. I'm the Executive Director of the Partnership for Safe Medicines. I'm also the Vice President for Public Affairs and Alliance Development at PhRMA. And I really like to first take a moment to actually thank our sponsors, because without them and their support, this event would actually not have even come about. And so I'd like to thank the silver sponsors, Genentech, Lilly, and Merck, our bronze sponsor, Novartis, and crystal sponsors, J&J, Pfizer, and Sproxel. Our media sponsors, FFF Enterprises, Fierce Markets, and RX Trace, provided much appreciated publicity and outreach to the community. So thank you very much for that. We really appreciate it. Without that combination of both financial support to make this event happen, but also the notoriety and the actual information to be sent around to others to make sure folks really understand what this event is all about, we wouldn't have made this possible. It's amazing to think that every year this event actually does grow. I know I speak for many of the people in the room when I say I look forward to the day where we actually don't need to host this conference. The purpose that we're all here is because there's a problem, and in fact, it would be much better as a situation if we actually didn't have to join each year to discuss it. Sadly, that is not the case this year. And so now, more than ever, we need to come together to protect patients. The criminals have innovated in the last 2 years, and you'll hear a great deal about that today, and attacking the supply chain by going directly this year actually to healthcare providers themselves, with promises of discounted medications are in reality actually fake drugs with no active ingredient, and you're going to hear a lot about that today. But today we're going to hear about the state of the problem from the very people who are working to eradicate it. And while we have an amazing lineup, there are even more experts actually sitting among all of you in the audience itself. To your left and your right, you're surrounded by patient advocates, members of law enforcement, regulators, and all facets of the manufacturing and supply chain who have one interest, and that's protecting patients from counterfeits and otherwise unsafe medicines. When a speaker talks about the major arrest of a counterfeit criminal, odds are that that special agent that brought him in is actually in this room. Some of the reporters that expose their supply chain are here with us as well. And when you hear about a counterfeit medication, odds are good that a patient advocate representing that community and those challenges is actually among us today. For those of you new to the partnership, and our statistics say actually nearly half of the folks in this room aren't new, which, first of all, welcome. An introduction is in order. Oh, there you go. I forgot I have 2 duties. That's a problem. 75 groups that make up the partnership, representing patients, doctors, pharmacists, nurses, and all parts of the supply chain from manufacturing to logistics, all have organizational commitments to protect patients from counterfeit medicines. They also understand that any single break in the closed, secure drug supply chain that we value so much in this country creates an opening for unsafe products. PSM supports the work of these organizations by producing materials to support education of patients and healthcare professionals. So we worked with dozens of patient safety groups to reach consumers and healthcare professionals with innovative Facebook advertising targeted to at-risk patients. We've published co-branded educational handouts targeted consumers as well as nurses, doctors, and pharmacists. And for a media and policy audience, we've created a new level fact pack that you'll actually find right in your conference materials, which is a comprehensive tutorial of the counterfeit issue. Just this month, PSM partner Men's Health Network sent our co-branded postcard and waiting room poster to thousands of doctors and clinics across 6 states in the country. Last week, PSM board member Marv Shepard, who we're joined on the stage with right now, conducted a webinar training for pharmacists and pharmacy techs in Virginia to work in low-cost and free healthcare clinics to teach them to recognize counterfeits and what steps they can do towards safer, affordable options. Just this past weekend, our representatives were in Nashville for the Tennessee Nurses Association annual conference. And Tennessee is one of the places where unlicensed sellers of unsafe cancer drugs were caught red-handed in the U.S. And our work at that conference was to educate nurses and other healthcare practitioners across the states with the postcard that teaches 3 quick lessons about the warning signs of counterfeits. And we're always innovating. We're developing a new partnership with groups with representing younger audiences with satirical posters, as you see here, about fake pharmacies and the challenges around them. And we've also started a number of partnerships with medical boards and players in the malpractice insurance industry to educate doctors and warn them about safety and the legal consequences and downsides of buying and administering unsafe medications. Our work is not just domestic, though. And as you'll hear over the course of today, this year our board members and staff worked internationally and locally led initiatives in India, China, Brazil, and across ASEAN. We support the work of these initiatives to build the capacity to detect and thwart counterfeiters whose illegal activities could potentially end up in the cabinets of American patients, and we know that those conversations are real. This initiative in India, PSM India, is led by our consumer protection expert, Bijan Misra, who is here with us today. And Bijan's going to talk a little bit later about how he's leading the fight in the country and the growth of the coalition of patient and provider advocates that he's built in India, working in collaboration with the government. And I've seen that not only just from a national level, but as Bijan has now started to work within the individual states in India. And that's been a tremendous success, one where I was actually with him in August, and it is quite invigorating to spend time with Bijan in the country to see his passion and zeal for what he focuses on in terms of protecting consumers each day. You'll see that later on. I can guarantee that during this conversation. And similar efforts are at work right now in China, and great progress continues in that space. Our researchers have been constantly publishing papers covering the dangers to patients as well. And so in the last 18 months, over a dozen papers authored or co-authored by our board of directors or research fellow have been published to add to the world's knowledge about the critical patient safety issue. Sadly, our work is even more urgent every year, and especially this year. And so as you can see from this graphic, there have been warnings of unsafe medication or outright counterfeiters caught in almost every state. And by the way, this is what we know to date. And so certainly this is a fluid process. And as we look closely monitoring a new situation, as we've seen the growth of black market IUDs and contraceptive devices being bought by OBGYNs from unlicensed sellers and implanted into patients. This is a real situation. We hope that 2014 holds no more surprises like this. With that, I want to provide a few notes about today's conference. So first, please silence your cell phones. I know that's tough in Washington, and there's always wonderful things happening in this town, but we would ask to the best of your ability, so we don't have intermittent rings. It would be great if everyone could silence them. If you do need to take a call, please feel free to step right into the refreshment area where you came through, and you can easily take it in there. A second, note that in your packet is a pen, which is also a USB drive. It's very secretive, but you can actually just pull the one end, and next thing you know, you have a USB stick. It contains a copy of all of our research, as well as our consumer and health provider handouts, as well as some of the ones that you see within the packets you were given when you came. Third, we have structured most of today's panels differently than we have in prior years. And so what we're going to do, instead of every speaker presenting on a PowerPoint, we're actually going to have it where our moderator and our leader is going to have one presentation, and then after that, each member of the panel will actually be facilitating a discussion. And so it's going to be much more free-flowing. It's also going to even provide a better opportunity for Q&A from the audience as well. If the session ends early, simply we're just going to move in for refreshments. Sometimes I often am reminded that these sessions don't end early because people usually have more questions than we have time. But if they do, feel free. We're just going to move in for refreshments at that time. Lastly, the moment you've all been waiting for, Wi-Fi. It's free. That's great. It's Museum Quest is the actual login. Feel free to click on it. And if there's any problems, please don't ask me because I have Wi-Fi and computer problems. So I would ask somebody else and we can find an answer for you. Finally, please mark your calendars. We are very excited we're very advanced right now in our planning that we actually know next year's Interchange conference date. And so September 18th next year, it's going to be right here again. And we're looking forward to another great event.